Hey there, got a light schedule today. It's been a little crazy week for me, so I didn't put much on there. Feel
Yeah,
free to add any items if you want to chat about stuff.
it's fine. I think let's wait for folks to join. I'm just looking at all the PRs that you have on the agenda. So let me see if I can move them along.
I think the stuff that I just dropped on there a minute ago is mostly just saying, hey, there's stuff out there. TOB stuff, we need to go through the chair election process before we really finish moving some of that stuff along. I would say if you, Tina, and anybody else that's on the TOB that wants to have a bio that doesn't have a bio up there on the website, feel free to send it over to me because I'll put together that whole PR in a bit.
Okay.
Not required. We've got people up there without bios and stuff like that, but
It's best to have a bio so that people know who they're voting for,
yeah.
or
Well,
etc.
this is people that are already currently on the board. It's just saying here's our current. I can put a link up. That'll be easier.
Okay.
Share this real quick about. Is it leadership maybe? Yeah. About TOB. Oh boy, everybody's jumping in all at once. Hey there, Jory.
Hello.
So Rom, that's the link that I'm looking at. So adding profile pictures and that sort of stuff. And then I'll update all the term links and things like that in there. If you want links to like LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that, feel free to send those over too, and I'll just put all those in the cards.
Okay. I'm on neither of them, so we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't think a lot of people look at this all that often, but when we go through and have an election, I go through there and update all the terms on those things.
Okay.
Jory, you're dressed for a backyard used to be a few weeks ago.
Still so cold here. Not a fan.
I was skating on ice all over the place this morning because it got warm enough to start melting pretty decently yesterday, and then back to solid sheets of ice everywhere this morning.
It has been like consistently below freezing. And then during the afternoon it gets like warm enough for the sun to kind of melt and then it refreezes. So yeah, everything's a sheet of ice.
It's not fun for walking on. So I'm going to take a stab at this one. I'll probably get it wrong. Is it Maruno?
Hey, it's Mrinal. Nice to meet you all. I'm, I'm joining this call after a long time. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Yeah, was involved heavily during the early days of OCI on the runtime spec side. And I have an interesting topic today, if we have time.
We've got time. I like people when they say they have interesting topics to talk about. If it's been a while, you might not have the link for the HackMD. So
Yeah.
feel free to drop yours in the agenda for today
Uh-huh.
and we can
Right.
chat all about that. So we're about 5 minutes after. We'll kind of do a soft start because I'm just going to pick on Jory for a little bit. I got a whole bunch of stuff for you to Jory, but the big one is we need to do the chair election for the TOB.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at that PR. Do you typically do similarly like a call? I'm just reading this, a call for nominations, and then kind of that's it. I mean, and then you don't do an election if nobody else raises their paw.
If it's just Sam,
Yeah.
it's super quick and easy.
Yeah.
If someone else actually jumps up and says they want to do it, then I'll go ahead and throw my name in and we'll go to do the full election process then.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the TOB electing ourselves. I don't think it's anybody outside the TOB voting. So it's a real small vote, but it's still a vote process.
Cool. I'm happy to kick that off. And you don't want to merge the other PR though until we have a chair.
We've got the chair label on there, and so I'd rather not say that Sam is the chair for this term
Okay.
yet. I'd rather us finish that election, then we'll go ahead and put both together. I should
Okay.
have thought about that before.
And we don't, do you want to keep it open for like 2 weeks? Is there I don't think it's mandated in your charter for a period.
Amy had one when she did it before, and so I'm just going to go ahead and follow the 2004 version that we
Okay,
got in there.
got it. All right, we'll just do that then. I will do that.
She had some
Okay.
kind of time frame. She knocked it all down. It technically started yesterday. You know, if we bump everything back a day or so,
No big deal.
we're not that biggie.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole lot of stuff in the TOP we're missing right now. We're better at doing elections than we are at actually making decisions on anything. Maybe that's a good problem to have. All right, real quick on announcement stuff out there. Distribution spec 1.1.1 did release this past week. For anybody that didn't know while that chaos was in there, we thank you, Mike, for that one, and everybody else that jumped into there on votes for that. For anybody that wasn't aware, we had a link to some deprecating actions in GitHub so that anybody that was doing conformist tests was going to see failures starting today. So we pushed that one through really quick. Let's see, other than that, there's the website PR for that distribution spec 1.1. And Jory, I'm going to put that one on you again. I keep naming you on stuff, but I'll throw this link over here. The reason I want you to take a look at this one is there's some verbiage in there, and I try to get it right, but the 30-day IPR period,
Okay.
that's completely outside of whatever the heck I know what we're doing over there. So I'm like, whatever this 30-day IPR period and a list of a whole bunch of companies that are now subject to this stuff and patent stuff and everything else, I'm like, I actually get someone from LF to double check the notes on that one to make sure we're doing it right.
You got it. I will just do a quick refresh of my memory of your okay, cool, great. I'm just gonna reread the process for OWFA and then I'll comment on the PR what I want you to do, or
if there's changes, we can make changes. I copied basically the one from previous and I just changed the company names in there to match whatever is in our current member list that I found on the website. That's the only difference to that from the last time we did a release. But I don't know if that means we're supposed to wait 30 days until we post this to the website and it's not supposed to go out until 30 days later or what. And so I figured
the timing, yeah. So basically they have a window of 30 days to notify of any exclusions, and then post that period, they're bound. So
but the fact that we're posting this blog post a day after we did the release means they haven't had the 30 days yet.
I mean, you have to give them notice that that 30-day period has commenced. So I don't know how you all have done that in the past.
The phrasing in here though says the 30-day period has passed.
Okay.
So I'm like,
yeah. So it hasn't passed yet. Yeah. So we want to give them, we want to provide notification that is that 1.1.1 is.
This is why I ping people like you. I'm like, this is all process stuff that's outside my visibility, but I figure someone like our LF counterparts over here probably know this better than me. Mike's over there just smiling, saying, thank goodness it's not me. Sorry to throw all that at once, Jory. It was a crazy week.
No problem. It's exciting to see these releases, though. This is great.
It's good to make them happen, especially when things like this are all going at once.
Yeah.
All right. I hit all my big things. Mrunal, I saw you throw in there the SHA-512. How about we chat about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I think based on some internal conversations, so I think folks may have heard about post-quantum crypto, right? Which is basically using newer algorithms that are resistant to future capabilities of quantum computers. So what could happen is today we are exposed to attacks where someone can store encrypted content, and when quantum computers are capable, they can decrypt them and steal those secrets. So a lot of efforts are underway to protect against that. And that means using new algorithms, strengthening everything. And I think one of the standard CNSA, which is due in a couple of years, based on our assessment, it looks like SHA-256 is not recommended. So SHA-512 has to be used for everything in the container side. And I don't think we are ready, like the tooling, distribution, everything. So I think we saw at least this PR on the distribution spec side, which will be good to get merged. So once we get that solidified, we can start fixing all the tools like registries and clients like Docker, Podman, Cryo, Containerd to start supporting SHA-512 in a first class manner.
So part of that gets into order of operations. And I'll say that typically the goal that I've heard is order of operations is Docker, Cryo, all these other people kind of chat amongst and maybe come over here and chat with us a little bit and say which direction we think of going. But they start getting some implementations out there and show this stuff actually works in the real world, and then we standardize it over here. So order of operations, I know all the projects like to go the opposite direction because it's less work on them to ever have to worry about rework or trying to make the standard themselves. But it throws us in this awkward place when we're trying to be a trailing spec and everybody wants to trail the spec.
I
You
mean,
can't both people trail each other.
yeah, I'm fine either ways. Like I see Sam and Mike here; they represent Containerd.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you all have had these discussions in the Containerd community, but we can do it that way too. Like we can start figuring out supporting in the implementations and then codifying here. But on the registry side, I think we'll need more representation, like from Quay, Docker distribution, and so.
There's a lot more needed. One of them that you're picking out from that issue is that when you push by a tag, you have no control as a client what digest algorithm is used. The registry just picks it for you, and it's going to be SHA-256 for anybody who wants any kind of backward compatibility with tooling out there today. So that needs work, and we've got discussions on how we can tweak that a little bit. The process of doing that means that our conformance test, I'm kind of partway through and I've got a lot of other things on the plate right now. So I kind of like got distracted from it at least within the past few weeks, but I'm rewriting the conformance test entirely because the current conformance test out there, every time we start adding a new data type to push to a registry, you kind of refactor and double the size of the conformance test every time. And you can only do that so many times before it's just completely unmaintainable. So I'm redesigned to be more like a matrix, and you just say, here's a whole bunch of different kinds of data types we want to pass through, and then here are all the tests we want to run against them, and you just run them as a matrix of 2x2 grid of whatever of all the stuff that happens. So that's in work, but then all those PRs that we're talking about are all pending on that, and then actually merging some of those changes are pending on getting the projects to it. I'll also mention that SHA-512 is in the spec today, but is in the spec as I don't know if it's a may or should. It's not a must. Everybody must support SHA-256.
It's a may.
It's a may? Okay.
Yeah, and Sam, to catch you up, this is for like post-quantum crypto, like protecting against that future and preparing for that. And I think FIPS and CNSA and those things are gonna start mandating that. So I'm hoping I get the conversation started here. So maybe a couple of
Try to
years
get
from
ahead of
now, we are in a better state to address that across the container ecosystem.
Yeah, and as Ram mentions, the one that we've really been looking at is Blake 3, because when you start getting into larger content, there are algorithms that can do this a little bit better, more efficiently. I don't know how Blake 3 handles post-quantum or not, but
Yeah, are you looking for SHA-512 specifically because it's post-quantum resistant? I don't think it is, right?
So I can get more information from our crypto team, which is looking into it for the next call. This is just to like start the conversation. But they figured that they looked into it and said, yeah, 256 is definitely not. We need to move to 512, but I can get that clarified.
I would guess that it might just require more bits of quantum to
Yeah.
break, and so it might just postpone the issue a little farther down the road.
Yeah, so if the goal is something that's post-quantum safe or post-quantum safer, SHA-512 seems like the wrong target, and we should maybe be looking at a different hashing algorithm that is explicitly designed to be quantum resistant.
Yeah, I can get more details from our crypto team for the next call, and yeah, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, in addition to distribution spec needing some of this stuff, there's also places where this plays into image spec, specifically the uncompressed digests that are put inside that config JSON. Those all get interpreted. Those are all generated on the client side to validate the image that it pulls down. And today it all defaults to SHA-256. And so if you put a SHA-512 digest in there, tools like Docker and everything will tell you that you don't have valid layers. So there are places that you can drop 512 today and it just works. If you push a blob, it just works. If you push a manifest by digest, it sometimes works. If you push a manifest by tag, no, it doesn't work. And then on the pull side, if you pull an image with the 512, it's spotty. Some places it works, some places it doesn't. But yeah, we definitely need the conformance test to do this. And so there's a whole sequence.
Yeah, I think like based on some quick testing, definitely saw a bunch of failures across the tools. Side, thanks for the link. That's what I got, like CNSA 2.0, and I think this talk should have more details. And anyway, so I think that was my topic, and we can talk more over the coming weeks.
Yeah, if there are folks that want to do some work on conformance test, more than happy to try to push that forward a little faster. I've got stuff that I've kind of been puttering along with on the side, but just haven't really dedicated some time to it right now. It hit my back burner again. And thank you, Jory. Yeah, whenever someone says quantum anything, I think Mike is probably chiming on that and saying, hey, I know a company does that stuff. I knew a company who did that stuff too.
Yeah, I was talking to him about the Shaw digests a while back, and he was looking into it. But he's no longer working on that. He's working on agentic stuff, AI. But he should be able to still have some links for that. Or I could just ping him if you need me to more now. You can find somebody in quantum that can chime in if need.
Nice. Any other thoughts on SHA-512, Blake 3, any other fun algorithms? If I say Blake 3, Ron gets excited. All right, we can circle back to this, but Sam, since you joined a few minutes late, we did mention to do a chair election, and then I've got the PR to update the TOB list on the TOB repo, and then I'm going to work on the opencontainer.org website PR as well, because we got our list over there. So I've got a few of those to do, but I wanted to get the chair election first.
Yep, thanks, Brandon. I replied to both of those on GitHub. Jory just opened a new issue about the election for the chair.
Yeah. If no one tries to knock you off the chair, I'm just going to say no election. Let's just keep you on board. But if someone knocks you off, I'm coming for that role.
I mean, if you want to nominate, you're welcome to nominate yourself. So
I am happy that you've been doing an awesome job at not having to do much of a job, because we're a pretty low maintenance group. But I figure if someone's going to force an election, I'll go ahead and go through the process. But we don't need to have an election. We're pretty chill as we are.
yeah, it's been a pretty easy thing to be a chair of, which is nice.
It's a rare day you get an easy chair position. I see conversations still going on in the SHA-512. So if we want to circle back to that, that was the only thing I wanted to loop back on there. So are you reading in there that 512 and 384 both?
There was a should in there.
I'm reading the
Oh no, this
thread
is the
here.
National Security Agency. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the one I was told about. So yeah, it says 384 or 500. Which page is it on? Yeah, I think page 3. Used SHA 384 or 512. Where else it shows up? Again, SHA 3, last line on page 3. But I think
I think SHA-3512 is that different than SHA-512? Yeah, because there's a SHA-512 a few lines up.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think so. SHA-512 is SHA-2.
Yeah, so if you look up 3 lines, secure hash algorithm,
FIPS Pub
it
180.
does say use 512 for all classification levels, but that's general purpose.
Hmm.
So maybe allowed? At least, is this the FIPS requirements?
what I think
pros, cons?
what I can do is like I can see if we can get one of our crypto experts and they'll know the right standards and the right motivation, then they can help us.
But on here, I don't see anything listing Blake 3. It would be AES or crystals to lithium, crystals, Kyber, those things. The conversation's going to go away from Blake 3. I don't know. You're going to have to circle this back again.
Yeah.
Patent issues to take care of.
What's that, Mike?
I just noticing that they're highlighting that SHA-3 may have patents.
Oh,
You find out who's got them and if they'll allow them for OSS for the project. OCI.
are you looking at the question down on page 8? Can I use SHA-3 as a hash?
Yeah, it says at least on page of the document, page 3 at the end, it says SHA-3 only for hardware functionality, not for anything else. So I don't know. That may be because not enough investigation has happened for SHA-3. But for SHA-384 and SHA-512, there is a SHA-2 family that says it's for all classification levels.
Yeah, because
So that is general purpose. So SHA-2 is general purpose. SHA-3 is not general purpose. It's only for hardware.
Noting that SHA-3 512 is also a 512-bit digest, not a 256-bit. So, unlike SHA-2.
Blake 3 being Blake 3, the community is still very small and young. So being quantum resistant is, I don't know, that needs a lot more evidence.
I don't see even Blake 2 or any Blake algorithms on this document.
So I think like maybe we want to make sure that the tooling is able to deal with different algorithms and like whichever
Exactly.
ends up being the right one instead of being kind of hard coded to 256 now. And yeah, if we can work towards that, I think it'll make it easy for us to switch to whatever ends up becoming the
Right.
final standard.
So
The other thing we were having to verify, Murnau, you weren't in on the earlier conversations. It was sort of an enlightenment to me is that you can support more than one SHA in the same index. So it could be you could add some testing and things like that. And, you know,
Okay, if
Just-
you have a relevant link, I would love to see that.
that was
the path, the
do we
path
have a
Mike's
link?
going is within any kind of manifest, whether it's an index or an image manifest, the descriptors within there might not all be the same digest. You might have a base image with a different digest. You might have two different builds on different platforms. One platform does 256, one platform does 512, and you put them in the same index.
Oh, okay.
And I would wager that a non-trivial number of registries are going to be storing it with SHA-256 under the hood anyways, so
That is what I saw from the distribution project was I would push stuff in there with 512 and I would get back various headers that imply that it was 256. So I managed to break a lot of stuff. I pushed one image out there that had the 512 and broke all the things. It was fun. But if you're looking for things folks can do today, in that PR that I've got, there is a new parameter being passed to the manifest push by tag that registries need to support. And so to move this forward while in the same time as conformance tests, stuff like that are happening, getting registries to weigh in on whether they want to support that extra parameter to the push by tag, that would be a good thing to start working various back channels on. Similarly, there's also one for when you do a blob upload to pass the digest algorithm, because if you're doing a stream push and you don't know the full digest for the end, it's nice to tell the registry in advance what digest algorithm you're going to use. So that the registry can stream and compute that digest algorithm or compute that digest on the fly. Otherwise, you get all the way to the very end of the blob push, and then you say, hey, by the way, I use this other algorithm, and it's got to go back and rescan the entire blob or reject it because the digest doesn't match. Neither one are good. Mike, you're making me reread our text again because I know we've got the shoulds and the mays and must in this language.
Right. Yeah.
Implementations may implement SHA-512. Implementations must implement SHA-256. Which,
But you must register. There was a
I mean, we
great one. Yeah.
yeah. The challenge we'll run into is trying to turn a may into a should or a must is
Tightening of
ask.
the specification. Yeah. It's not backwards compatible.
Yeah, it's an ask, especially for registries out there or even runtimes out there that say, I want to be an OCI runtime, and now you start throwing content that you said you didn't have support before, and now you do.
Right. But we could have a different description for SHA-3 type algorithms. We could have it or quantum safe, whatever, or resistant. qualified algorithms.
I will ask, how big of a deal is that? If this is all kept at the May level, for quantum safe, for all the FIPS compliance, stuff like that, can this just be that some people have their images, their runtimes, and whatever safe in their environments, and so all their tooling is updated to support the Maze? And it doesn't matter for us as the spec language because there are projects out there that might not be able to run those images, but that's not our problem.
I think our problem is making sure that when it is provided, it's on multiple platforms and right, that sort of thing. So that there won't be two different implementations of the same SHA. That would be bad.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to implement SHA-512, you should do so in a way that is compatible with everybody else's implementing SHA-512.
Right. That would be a must, I would say, in the spec. Right. And then you could have something to the effect, if we ever get to where we're going to be able to query clients and registries of their capabilities, if they say that they support one, then we could argue that they, or at least you must provide a list of the ones that you do support. We could have that kind of language if we had a new API, right?
I could also see us changing a may to a should. It's us saying, hey, we're recommending going forward that we start doing this stuff. If you don't do it, expect there are going to be some clients out there that don't. But theoretically, people really should be doing this. We should start making this a little bit higher visibility in the conformance that, hey, you've got stuff in there that you should do. You're not failing the conformance, but you've got issues.
Yeah, that's valid. We've done that before. We've upped to shoulds for recommendations for implementations. That's fine. Because that doesn't break the May, right?
In both cases, their implementations don't do it. We're just giving a stronger recommendation implementation. Say, hey, it would be really good if you did this.
Yeah.
So does that cover the questions today? More thoughts on that? Next steps you want to chat about?
I guess there is interest in figuring out a path forward for this. Then I guess I'll make sure we have folks attending and contributing.
Yeah, there's definitely interest. I'm curious, what groups are you representing when you're mentioning?
So I work for Red Hat.
Okay.
I started Cryo, and I'm the Signode chair on Kubernetes, so representing all of these.
Awesome. Well, welcome back again.
Was just at Red Hat's offices in Boston yesterday.
Oh.
Are you in Boston? Where are you?
No, I'm in the Bay Area.
Cool.
Yeah, so getting them working along the same pattern that we get for this with Containerd, with other people, that'll be good. I've got a sample implementation of this in my own little small registry project, and in my own registry client tooling, I've got tools that will convert an image from 256 to 512. So if you want something to test against, I've got the stuff that'll take your image, put it in 512, put it in a registry, and then you can run your client tools to try to pull it.
Okay, I think
See
if
if it
you
works.
have links you can put in the doc, I'll see if we can test with that. Yeah. Thank you.
Let me find probably have it as a draft pull request. Did I merge it? Where'd that go? Thought it was a draft. Maybe I merged it already. The registry is my little Ola Reg project. It's not super popular out there, just a little small thing, but it serves well. It's basically an OCI layout-based registry, and so it's good for testing and proof of concepts, which is exactly what a lot of people doing this kind of stuff are trying to do. And then my reg client project out there, that I believe has a pull request. Let's see. Looking through. No, that code might emerge as well. So reg client as well. I forget which things I leave in draft and which things I just merge and ship it and say, worst case, it was just theoretical. My reg client project has a reg client, reg cuddle image mod. If you run that command, there are a whole bunch of flags you pass to it, and you can say modify this image from 256 to 512. You can even say pull it from Docker Hub, push it over here in my local registry. And then from there, you can point a runtime to your local registry and say, try to run this 512 image and see what breaks. Because I will say, I've done this before. I pushed this stuff up to Docker Hub and I broke things. They were fun times. I think I'm like the 0.0000001% of people that push a SHA-512 content to Docker Hub. So I'm probably on some person's report and they don't like me. But yeah, also if you have problems, feel free to reach out. I'm accessible. I'm over on the OCI Slack, bunch of other places, so I can work through what I run into in the past trying to make that happen. And this is all proof of concept right now. None of it's in the spec yet, and so things may change. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Like I say, rest of this one is eventually we need to get the conformance test updated. And once we can completely redesign the conformance test to make it so we can test against different kinds of data, I think that'll open the floodgates on trying to get this into the spec proper. All right. Anybody else have topics for the week? Otherwise, you're all being quiet again. I was excited when we had a new topic for the day. Going once, going twice.
Run out. You want?
Everyone's like, run away.
Oh, there's been a lot of discussion about creating some kind of a group of people interested in doing artifact support.
Yes, that's the other topic. So I don't know what the right forum is, but I think it's going to be the same people. Doesn't matter
Probably
who
the
we
same
discuss
people. There's people here that would have some interest, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think like we want to make sure that like we have this OCI volume source, and I think Brandon, I saw you you come and clarify some things there, so thank you.
I've made a lot of noise over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, so I think what we want to do is we want to come up with some standard annotations across runtimes, so we all agree on, and when someone specifies something, like we pull the same thing and the same thing shows up in a pod when mounted, like same content. And it's very useful for AI models. So that's a motivation for
You
pushing.
said a dirty word, annotations. Are you thinking?
Sorry, the type, the artifact type. Yeah.
Okay, artifact type, not.
Yep.
So I'm going to say there are probably two places to do this and to consider. One is that you modify the artifact itself and you put it in the descriptor for each individual blob. Here is what this thing in the blob represents, a file, whatever, and the permissions and whatnot, and put all that as an annotation on the descriptor in the individual.
I knew it was going to come up.
So that's one direction to go. The other direction to go is to say the people that are mounting this stuff inside their images might all want to put things in different places. And so potentially moving all of that logic into the volume mount logic itself in that volume definition.
I think like my worry is like there's going to be no agreement on how folks put their models and their configs in as artifacts. So how can we come up with something that's generic enough, and then the runtimes can kind of go by artifact type or something and still come up with the same content? Because if the runtimes won't agree, then this falls apart. Like, oh, when I do
So-
this with containerd and cryo, and I'm getting different content in my volumes, and it doesn't
So you're going
work.
for option number 3 there, which is to say for each different artifact type, whatever that media type is that's in there, to treat that content as something that the runtime knows how to automatically mount on a certain path.
Yeah, that's one option. Or if we can just stay away entirely and say, okay, we just explode everything into directories or files, and then we just don't interpret any artifact like things. It doesn't matter what the artifact is, as long as we can, if it's a tar, we untar it. If it's a directory, it's a directory.
Yeah, the more I'm thinking about this more now, it seems obvious, maybe in hindsight, but we should be able to have a source path tree that's based on JSON, kind of semantics, where you could specify the content that you want to copy, and then we could use the same OCI image volume that we've been going with already. The path to. We could have a source path out of the tree, and then a to kind of a language.
No, but are you talking about like something put on the registry that describes how the artifacts should be unpacked?
I'm basically saying that all these new media types, even if they don't use the same fields that we've requested them to use, for example, WASM has a new JSON field.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with blobs, but it's what we would consider a blob. Anyways, so we could just say that, okay, here's your a JSON tree for this image. I can create that, right? Just an object, a JSON object. And then if you've got some text that describes a path from that source that you want me to actually copy over, then I could do that. It doesn't have to be typed, in other words. It could just be string content.
So Mike, I might have missed it. Where was the JSON that you're talking about? You're saying in the volume 2, is that in the Kubernetes definition of the volume, or are you putting it on the registry?
I was looking at the WASM manifest, and the WASM manifest had an additional field.
So the Kubernetes manifest itself.
No, the OCI object manifest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think this should all be transparent to Kubernetes. Like Kubernetes just has some string which is interpreted as an image or an artifact, and then I think it's on the runtime to decipher it the right way. When we just need to make sure that all runtimes are agreeing on how they decipher.
Yeah.
So the concern I'll raise if you try to put this on the runtime to parse the artifact type and to know this WASM is going to have this thing, this other one's going to have this other one. There are an unlimited number of artifacts. There is no upper bounds to the number of artifact types out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can avoid that and see, okay, this is what's going to work for 99% of the cases, or do we need to include additional JSON or YAMLs adjacent to the artifact?
Or just support any type is where I was headed, but yeah.
Yeah, we want to support any type, I think. It doesn't matter. But can we come up with some way which will say, okay, it doesn't matter what type you specify, we have a deterministic algorithm that will unpack it in this order, and it should be the same on all runtimes.
Yeah, the path I've gone to is to say, try to put this over in the Kubernetes manifest side inside of their volume definition. The reason being is that I'm always worried that we'll solve this for the artifacts of yesterday, and every day there's going to be a new project coming out there saying, hey, I got a new artifact type. I need you to now upgrade all the runtimes to the newest version of runtime because you need to support my new type.
So I think like from a runtimes perspective, right? They're going to be two kind of artifacts. So I'm going to say like WASM can be a runnable artifact. That's a separate category. I think in this case, we're just talking about data, like models with weights, and which is just going to be mounted in a volume and read by your main container process. So how different are they going to be? Like they're going to be files. Maybe they are compressed in a certain fashion, or maybe they are a group of files put in some directory structure. I'm not sure what you're saying we should put in the Kubernetes manifest. Are you saying we should be putting the media type of the artifacts? Another challenge is that there could be like a bunch of artifacts in a manifest list, right? It could be models of different sizes, different quantizations. There could be metadata about the models and so on. So what do we put there? If we can just point to a single index and have
Doesn't
some
seem to enable
algorithm
my
that
noise.
just unpacks it. Yeah, I'm not sure what the
That
answer
brings
is.
up the other question, which is, right, although if they're not literally pointing to the one they wanted, right, are we using the refers API with some kind of a filter to find the types? So
Yeah, but then you're saying that we always expect a referrer to point to something that's going to describe how you unpack it.
oh no, I was more thinking that we would have cases for supporting blobs versus layers, for example, in the however we're defining the source context.
And
If you want to just get the config, here it is.
okay, that could be through a referrer. Yeah,
Config file. Right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
In a generic way, as you said earlier, some kind of generic way to do that and cover 99.9%.
Yeah.
And we could just add any type for
Yes, exactly. Because I don't think we're gonna agree on the types, like the way things are changing, and yeah.
As soon as we said you can push arbitrary data to a registry, every group got very interested. There are a lot of artifacts out there already.
Right,
And
exactly.
they're already doing it in 3 different ways, right?
Yeah.
OCI 1 with extensions, and OCI 1.1 now, right? So,
But yeah, this is another big topic that we are very interested in pushing forward from the Kubernetes side. So I mean, if this is a good forum, we can continue talking here.
I think we'd miss out a lot if we didn't have that conversation here as well.
Yeah. I think that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I can attend this call.
If only so that we can make sure that these guesses that we make become specification extensions later on. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Mike, for.
We can also bring in
Yeah.
the RS people and other people.
Yeah.
The Microsoft team. They've been doing a lot of stuff on artifacts.
Yeah.
And same thing with TNN, right? They've been Docker's got some special ways to do artifacts as well, and we'll want to try to figure out how we can map those. I think.
Yep.
Or isolate. Yeah. Prefer not to isolate. It'd be nice if we had extensions to be able to support, right, from the container runtimes, the ability to pull from registries and push, for the certain models that are already being supported. At least as a transition, right, mechanism to get to 1.2. Cool. All right.
I'm still thinking through that whole refer logic that you're looking at, Mike, because you were saying you're going to use refers to pass the configuration to the artifact, and so you would have an artifact with refers to it, and the refer would be the configuration of the artifact.
Well, pick a pattern. If you're looking for attestations on all of the objects, right, for this manifest, you could use refers to get, to collect those and then check, validate. And if any one of the ones that you pulled from that registry were invalid, then you could say via some kind of plugin mechanism that that's a container that you can't run, right? Because you've said, please attest or validate the attestation, right? But that's an attestation kind of algorithm. It's not generic mount my volume kind of pattern that we're talking about right now. I think it would behoove us in the container runtimes to extend the NRI API that we already have, right, to be able to take some of these additional image context things that we have associated with the images that we're being asked to run, and do some additional functionality. Or we can do it with kubelet managers. Either way, right?
So I know NRI stuff, I think image compatibility people have been going down that path over there of saying, how do we pass an extra artifact and do that? So that is in the works over there with other folks.
And in some respects, they need to be able to pull as well, right? Or are they going to start a whole new garbage collection mechanism and do images from artifacts, or image content from artifacts in one way, in kubelet, and
I-
that's why we ended up doing the image pull, was because we already had a process, right?
The impression I got is they were going to pass the NRI as a refer to the image. And so you could have a scheduler that would be aware when I'm pushing this image, let me go pull the refers, see that I've got the NRI, apply all that to the scheduling.
You want to do that in the scheduler?
I think
I
they
knew
wanted to,
with what API, right?
I
The
think they
NRI
wanted to do
API,
that
that's
was,
fine. Yeah.
I think they wanted some kind of plugin, I'm not sure, in the scheduler direct or before the scheduler, because they wanted to be able to influence which nodes this image ran on.
And typically on manager nodes, they don't have access to the cached content that's already been pulled in the worker nodes for,
Yeah, but it doesn't have to pull the whole image. It needs to pull a refer to the image to
Right.
pull that. So
be-
it just needs
that's
to head on
making
that
the
to get
decision
practice.
to do the at a scheduler basis. And if you're, depending on if this was for DRA scenarios, you may need to use a manager that's on the worker node to decide, right, that kind of thing. It's a tricky question. It's a tricky question. Where should you be doing the validation and optimization? We do it at all places right now, right? We do it at the scheduler level, cluster scheduler level, and managers inside of kubelet, and of course also we can knack when they request to run a container based on some, logic of that. Sorry, that device won't run this one because, right? And it could be anything from a user ID is invalid for that device, right? Or an RBAC, it could just a lot of things. It's going to be complicated. And I think we just have to enable all the different patterns and pick which one, just like we do in OCI, pick which ones we think are preferred. It's a hard problem. I don't have any problem with exposing, NRI extensions for image from the worker nodes to be exposed up. Right now, the node API doesn't have support for that. We'd have to extend the node API to be able to drill down into the various worker nodes and see if those worker nodes believe, right, via a plugin that they'll be able to run this particular container or pod, if you will.
So I'm not sure I quite follow that. My impression from the NRI was that the node would do all this discovery of here's all the stuff that's on my node, and that would get propagated up. You're saying it doesn't get propagated up?
Well, in cahoots with the lower levels as well, right? In the case that you're talking about, you might be talking about an NRI manager device that's been added to kubelet under this new DRA cap, right? So while it's talking to the schedulers, it can publish, along with what it currently does with taints, it can publish the types of, DRA patterns that it supports, the DRA devices it supports. To borrow what we do for GPUs today.
Because the impression I was getting was that the NRI stuff would run on the node. It would do all the discovery there. It would find, here's all the stuff that I've got hardware-wise on my machine.
And upward publish, we don't have an API for that yet, the capabilities.
Okay. Yeah, because the impression I got was that information would then be available, maybe not all of it, maybe whatever they're selecting would be available to the scheduler up top, that it can pick and choose and say, hey, all these nodes out there, I've got these with this hardware, let me run this image on that. And so we're just adding an extra piece in there that says, for this given image, you would really like to have the NRI configuration that says, here's the stuff on this hardware, so you can run this image out there. And so that was an extra piece they were looking to add before this, probably in the process of submitting the Kubernetes manifest, some kind of interface in there.
And yeah, so basically today we support this through a thing called CDI, right? And we need to extend beyond CDI to support NRI in the same context. And that's going to require some upward mobility. Today, again, there's no way to get a list of what CDI devices are configured in the runtime. We need to fix that for CDI and also for NRI. We need to have some upward level. We're also working on downward API so that Kubernetes can tell the container runtimes, what configs are expected to be runnable in the runtime. And please tell me if this is doable or not. We don't currently have enough config going down into the container runtimes to make these decisions.
I'll have to catch up on the implications of NRI intersecting with image pools. I haven't.
Yeah. And the other way to look at it is these managers that they're writing, they talk to the NRI plugins. So the NRI plugins themselves can create their own gRPC communications back to the managers that are in Kubelet. And they are doing that. But that's not an upward API, so the container runtime won't know, which can cause other problems, right? I don't know, Murnell. I think we need more of a.
I think, yeah, we need. I need to dive into that more on the NRI side and like that. I'm not sure if we want to depend on NRI directly. Maybe we just spec it out at the kubelet CRI boundary and then see at the container runtime side like what the right implementation looks like. NRI could be the answer, but I'm not
Or do
sure.
we extend runtime status, right? Yeah. One of those.
So I just dropped a link in there. They've got some alpha stuff already.
And a little bit of this conversation, Brandon, goes back to the thing I was pushing last year, once every other month. Where's the OCI pod spec? Or a set of containers. Without that, we don't have a way to talk about it at the OCI layer.
Are you volunteering to create a new working group and manage it?
If there's and manage it.
I don't think, Mike, we have the bandwidth this year.
I know we got
we got enough brewing in Node.
I've got enough working groups on my plate that I'm not properly managing right now, so I'm not adding more. But if you are, this is I kept saying in the NRI or whatever, I think this is Node Feature Discovery NFD. I mix up my acronyms all the time. Too many of these 3-letter acronyms out there. But they've got experimental support for the image compatibility stuff in the 0.17.0 release over there. So that's the link I dropped a minute ago. And they document what their artifact has in it.
Node feature discovery. Yep. Change log December.
How they're attaching the content in there.
Helm
How they're
chart
validating it. So like I say, they have been working on this from the image compatibility side.
Okay.
But this is happening a little bit outside of the working group. This is the working group saying this is probably not necessarily OCI, this is more Kubernetes. And so we sent them over to talk to the other side. And so Morrison came back and pinged and said, oh, hey, by the way, we got this stuff already happening over in NFD.
Yeah, a lot of this ends up using private APIs and such, right outside of the CRI.
Yeah, the payload itself just goes through in documents. Looks like a whole bunch of what's preferred, various weights and whatnot. And I guess that gets past the scheduler, and so the scheduler can then make some decision, or the NFD client or something in there does. And I see a link down there at the bottom to an NFD client plugin, kubectl plugin. Not sure if that runs to define the manifest or if that's running just to package all this stuff up.
Loaded module, easy enough to detect using a sys API. Yeah, thanks for the links. It's been a while since I've looked at what they're up to.
You bet.
It's definitely not using a cry API outside of, you know, anything we already have. And we have a runtime status API, which is where we usually put this kind of stuff.
I just realized we ran over time already, so if anybody needs to drop, cool with that.
Nice catching up here again.
Yeah, you
Next
bet.
week.
Fun stuff.
We'll circle back to this next time if you manage to come back. Looking forward to seeing you again. Otherwise, thanks for kicking the conversation back off with us. We need to not forget about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Here's everybody.